Today we talk about finances and specifically what you can do to ensure the short, medium and long-term success of your personal finances and your business finances after the lockdown lifts. One of the biggest constraints we can face is uncertainty. And what uncertainty does is it clutters our mind. It prevents us from thinking clearly and thinking in a structured way. So what we do in this video today is unclutter our brains and look at a very simple construct, a very simple structure so that you can think clearly and that you can organize your personal and your business finances in 3 easy steps.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief.
Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. If it's the first time here, my name is Kai-Dirk Liefert and I worked in asset management for about 20 years or over 20 years. And I have experienced quite a few financial crises and most notably the one in 2001 as well as 2008. Of course, this current crisis in 2020 looks quite a bit different, and yet there are lessons learned from the past that are still applicable today. Here on Cressman's Pilot, we talk about business advice and leadership skills. And we cannot neglect that keeping a good track and a good grasp of our personal finances and our business finances is key to maintaining the freedom that we want to achieve here together. So this is what today's video is about, and the first part we want to get into are the personal finances. The very first thing you have to do in a crisis is to protect your cash flow. Now you can do that in a number of ways. You can obviously look at your income streams. Is there another job you can take? Is there a side hustle you can start? Is there maybe an online business that you could pursue? And on the other hand, you can look at your expenses to cut out everything that is unnecessary. You need to make sure that your income is still greater than your cost. I know it's tough at the moment. Many have lost their jobs. Many have to rely on the government to pay some of their wages. And, it's not easy for any of us. And yet, if we remember that one thing, that in a crisis we have to protect our cash flow, then we are one step ahead to declutter our mind. Now, obviously we can dip into our savings to sustain us for a period of time, and that is perfectly acceptable. What I would encourage you to do is ask yourself, do you think that the current situation is temporary? And what I mean by that is, do you think that you have to sustain yourself out of your savings for longer than 6 months' time? If that's the case, it is time for more radical action. Maybe it is time for a new job or less expenses, moving into a different flat, moving into a different house. And I know none of us want to do that. And I know we all fear that type of change. But I can assure you that the earlier you act, the more time you have later on to really get back to the level of income and to the level of cost that you had before the crisis hit. Now, what about our savings? Can we do something else with them? And I would argue surely you can. If you have a little bit of cash sitting on the sidelines, this may be a really good opportunity to invest in your retirement accounts. I would only say that for those of us who are at least 10 and ideally 20 years away from retirement, because you want to make sure that if there are ups and downs during the time, you can ride them out. But we have seen in recent times that the stock market dropped 20, 30, sometimes 40%. And yes, it has rebounded a little bit since then, but we still are at levels where it is actually very attractive to invest in the markets today. Let me give you an example. My personal retirement account was only invested about 50% before the crisis hit. And I then used that amount of money that I had sitting on the sidelines to invest, well, not at the bottom of the market and at the bottom of the crash, but as we were up in the recovery. And as a result, today my overall retirement portfolio is around the break-even point where you have about zero profit or loss. And that is still a great achievement, because if you think about it, stock markets are still down about 20% from where they were about 6 to 9 months ago. And if that is any indication of what to expect in the future, we can see that probably through this crisis we can earn at least a way to buy a little bit cheaper into our retirement accounts. The other thing I would say about retirement accounts is that this may actually be a good time to get some professional advice on your pension portfolios. We see across the world that governments have bailed out small businesses as well as you and I through paying some of our wages, or in the US through stimulus checks. And because that is the case, it's very helpful in the short term, but we should be under no illusion that that is all money that in some shape or form has to be paid back. And it is either through taxes or through inflation. And if that's the case, we have to find a way how to protect our investment for that inflation. You would typically do that through investments in money market funds, inflation-linked bonds, or some infrastructure investments. On those infrastructure portfolios, well, they are typically a little bit less sensitive to inflation because they are funded by the government and they typically include an inflation clause in there as well. Anyway, this is not a financial advice channel, so please do get financial advice on that, but that concludes what we can do around our personal finances. What about our businesses? Are they so incredibly different from our personal lives? And I would argue they probably are not. One of the main things in a business is also to protect your cash flow. This is actually the second video in a series that deals with the lift of the lockdown, so I'd encourage you to watch the other video because it helps you to categorize your business. But in short, to protect your cash flow, you do exactly what you would do in your personal lives as well. You explore whether there are other revenue streams, and you cut out everything that is possible from your cost base. Make sure that your revenues outweigh your cost, and when that's not possible, yes, you can again dip into your savings to prolong your business a little bit. But this is where the other video comes in. Make sure that your industry that you're in has not fundamentally changed. That's possible. And if that was the case, then again, it is time for some more drastic action to explore other business models, to explore other revenue streams. And finally, if you have the chance, this is also a great time to opportunistically invest in the growth of your business. Maybe it's time to bring another investor on board. Typically in a crisis, you have investors with large sums of money sitting on the sidelines waiting for the right opportunity. And maybe your business is exactly that right opportunity. It's also a great time to do a cash injection if you have the money to do so. So if I had to summarize all that financial wisdom in a single sentence, I would say, number one, protect your cash flow. Number two, prolong your business with savings when you can. And number three, use some of the savings to invest and to pursue growth opportunities. I know none of this is actually rocket science. Of course not. But in a crisis, we often overcomplicate things in our head. And they don't have to be complicated. We are just creating constraints in our heads that are not really there. So if you just follow those 2 or 3 tips in this video on your personal finance side as well as on your business finances, you will get through the crisis. And not only that, but you will also have spent some of your savings in those opportunities for growth, in those opportunities for investment. When you get value out of this video, please consider subscribing to my channel as I talk about business advice and leadership skills here every single week. Also, if you do want to know a surefire way to climb the career ladder, even though you're not fully in charge, watch the video that's on the screen right now. I will see you over there and in the next video.